chill out. Today we have another episode of Did This Deserve 1 Star, which is a series I do regularly here. Very regularly on this channel, this little square of the internet that I'm in charge of. Whenever authors do something that makes people upset, people tend to go en masse and 1-star review their book on Goodreads. I then make a video after reading said book to tell you whether or not it deserved 1 star. The book in question today is The Night in Its Moon by Piper CJ. Piper is an indie author who has a substantial following on TikTok. I want to say like 200,000 people. She and I actually have a lot in common. So we're both 30. We're both queer women who are married to men who joined the Air Force. We both came out to our families very late in life and it did not go well. We both have fundy Christian families. Fundy evangelical Christians are so fun. I can't tell you what a great time I'm having in my family. So had I known all of that and then heard of the book, I would have been like, I'll read that. I would have been interested to try this anyways. Unfortunately, this social faux pas, if you want to call it that, Rachel, that was an odd choice of words, that Piper did was the first that I had heard of her. And more unfortunately, this is a case where the book does indeed deserve 1 star. Even though it sounded super cool, besides her consistently calling it a bisexual fantasy, which I've never heard anybody use that particular way of like, normally people use like, it's a queer fantasy, or it's a fantasy starring queer folks, or it's a book about a blood mage who is a pansexual blah blah. That in particular is In the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland. That was a great book. But I've never heard anybody describe a book as a bisexual fantasy, and honestly that sounds like a a bisexual fantasy. When I think of the words bisexual fantasy, I think of like me, Jason Momoa, who's a really hot woman, and Nina Zenik all in a room together. I love that I chose a fictional woman as the woman that I would like to date. Oh my god. Anyways, that's my bisexual fantasy. I'm actually pan, but whatever. What's your bisexual fantasy? Okay, as I said, this book did sound cool, but I read it and it was not. I'm gonna talk about all that. First, let's talk about what Piper did. Make people upset, just in case you need the context. Piper and her editor made some poor choices. They reacted very poorly to a Goodreads review. There was a review that was a fine review. It was a typical, it wasn't, you know, mean. It was pretty long. It was descriptive in what the reviewer would have liked to see done, and the reviewer gave it 2 stars. Unfortunately, Piper did not react well to this and went on Instagram and made fun of the reviewer's taste in books. And then Piper's editor went and told the reviewer to shut the fuck up. And I just want to preface this by saying I need to put editor in quotes because this is not, I think it's important to note that this is not like a professional editor. This was a beta reader who I guess was given the job of editing this book. And I know that from Piper's literal TikTok. Piper made some apology videos on TikTok, which did not go over well. I guess they were kind of flippant and downplayed what happened. I don't know. I didn't see them. She deleted them and then she came back a few days later and put up this apology. If you don't care, simply fast forward. If you've already seen it, you can fast forward to this timestamp right here and then it will be gone.
Hi, sorry it's taken so long to make this video. The truth is I have had no idea what to do or how to respond because I fucked up, but I've also heard some really damaging untruths and some serious allegations, and because I didn't know how to react, I turned off my TikTok comments and put my head in a hole, but that's not a very grown-up way to handle things. So I'd just like to explain to you what I did and what happened, and hopefully you'll watch this video to the end. I received what was objectively a constructive 2-star review. It was one of my first perceived negative reviews, and I took it as rejection. And right away, my knee-jerk reaction was mean-spirited. My first response was to imply that this reviewer had bad taste in books. I cherry-picked other books that they had given 2 stars to that I did like, and then I cherry-picked books that they had given 5 stars to that I did not like, and I went onto my Instagram story and I made fun of her thinking it would make me feel better about myself. It was super shitty. I don't condone it. I felt bad about it and I took it down after a few hours, but that doesn't change the fact that it happened. The books I selected were insensitive. The way I acted was insensitive. It's not the kind of person that I want to be, but it's the kind of person that I was when I perceived rejection, and I'm so disappointed in myself. It was several days later that a friend texted me saying, "Are you aware of what's going on Goodreads?" I responded that no, I wasn't, and she said, "Your editor has left a few comments, you should tell her to delete them." So right away, I messaged my editor saying, "Can you delete your comments?" I wasn't trying to hide things, I just didn't agree with them being said. She deleted her comments, and then she posted a follow-up comment justifying why she had left the former comments, and that was when I decided that she would not be moving forward with future projects with The Night and Its Moon. I'll show you what those comments were. The first one was one saying that this review was unhelpful, it criticized her professionalism, and then she used cursing language. She then followed it up with this, specifically mentioning my socials. "I'll be working with a seasoned professional editor from now on. I don't want to rush things out or move too quickly. I'm inexperienced, and so I shouldn't be surrounding myself with more inexperience." I reached out to the affected reviewer. Her tag here is Eska, and on other socials she remains anonymous. I apologized, and she was so gracious to accept my apology, and she has been the bigger person in this than I was. She responded saying this, and also apologizing that the narrative has gotten out of hand in regards to a slur, this P word, that was said to have been used, that I did not think or say or even imply, and so she issued a statement to clarify that that's not what happened. What did happen was that I was shitty, that I made fun of her on my Instagram story for my taste of books. It was an isolated incident, but that doesn't change the fact that it happened. I've heard narratives that there were multiple reviewers or that anyone who left a low review was hassled or harassed. This reviewer is the only injured party, the only directly injured party, I should say, because I do feel that this was damaging to the reading community as a whole, or to anyone who felt unsafe leaving a review, because no one should feel unsafe leaving an honest review. So even though Eska was the only one targeted here, I didn't just hurt her. I hurt readers who might not feel like they can share information. I made indie authors look unprofessional. The allegation that I used the P word is very serious. It's a word that I'm too familiar with. I understand the weight and gravity of that word, and I would not use it lightly, and I would not throw it around. I've also heard and seen rumors invalidating my sexuality and my coming out story as a result of this, and that's been really hard to hear. At this stage, all I can do is hold myself accountable, not condone that behavior. No reviewer should be torn down for their review. Mostly I'm sorry to Eska, who's at the center of this shitstorm, because I perceived rejection and I lashed out. I will do better, and I will be better. Please be mad at me for the things that I did do, and not based on the rumors. And I can promise you again, I don't condone it, and it will never happen again. Thank you.
I have a lot of thoughts on this apology, which I will not be giving here in this video. All I'm going to say is that I feel like it is very calculated in its wording, and it made me uncomfortable. Anyways, that's what happened, and then reviewers saw all of this go down and mass one-starred the book. It currently holds a fairly low rating on Goodreads. So I reviewed it, as I do in this series, to find out if it deserved 1 star. It definitely did. And not just because I don't think it was ready to be published, nor was Piper herself ready to be published, but it gets 1 star because it blatantly ripped off a very popular fantasy series that Piper herself is a huge fan of. First, I want to give any advice to any writers, people who have not been published yet, who would like to be, who might be watching this. Piper made it very clear before this happened that she was not open to any critical feedback. She was not in a place where she was open to hearing anything but positivity about her book, and that's not a good place to be if you're going to publish. I'm going to show you some TikToks to show what I mean.
Some of my early reactions from the beta readers: they have my ego huge. They're honestly too good for my self-esteem. Someone needs to stop these women, because now I'm full of myself and I will not believe anyone who tells me anything other than they are awesome and that these books are worth getting kicked out of the family for. You know how many agents I sent my book out to? 0. Guess how many publishers I sent it to? 0. I'm afraid of rejection, and I didn't want anyone to give me the opportunity to feel bad about myself. So what did I do? I licensed my own legally compliant publishing house. That's right, I am a publishing house of 1, and I am my only client, and I am a handful.
There is another one that she deleted before I could screen catch it, where she did a voiceover of this guy while holding up her book.
Do I accept constructive criticism? No, I don't. Okay? I only accept positive reinforcement. I want fawning adulation. Okay? If I come up to you with an idea that's boneheaded, harebrained, I want you standing in front of me, sobbing uncontrollably, telling me it's the most beautiful idea you've ever heard.
This is not an appropriate mindset to have if you are going to publish, whether you indie publish or you traditionally publish. ever. Beta readers do not exist to feed your ego. You definitely should not make one of your beta readers your editor, especially when they have no formal experience. And writers, if this is where you're at, don't publish yet. You have to get in a different and more appropriate headspace and harden yourself to critical feedback before you publish. If you want your book to be elevated to its best and not just a fun project that lives on your computer like my work in progress does, you have to decide that you're willing to get negative feedback. Actually, more than that, you should be seeking it out. And I don't mean in Goodreads reviews after you've been published. You should be doing the work before you publish to try to figure out how to get your book to be at its best. If you are getting feedback that makes you feel like you're the next N.K. Jemisin, you are probably doing something wrong. You should be looking for critical feedback at every level of your writing before you publish. Books are worth putting in that effort. All right, that's all I'm gonna say on that, but that unfortunately is not the last of Piper's TikToks I'm going to use, which this is what I do. I make points by that way. Welcome to the series in which that happens. All right, here's the book synopsis. Ready? Farley is just an orphanage. At least that's what the church would have people believe. But beautiful orphans Knox and Fay-touched Amaris know better. They are commodities for sale, available for purchase to the highest bidder. So when the madame of a notorious brothel in a far-off city offers a king's ransom to purchase Amaris, Knox ends up taking her place, while Amaris is drawn away to the mountains, home of mysterious assassins. Even as they take up new lives and identities, Knox and Amaris never forget one thing: they will stop at nothing to reunite. But the threat of war looms overhead, and the two are inevitably swept into a conflict between human and fae, magic and mundane. With strange new alliances and untested powers, and a bond that neither time nor distance could possibly break, the fate of the realms lies in the hands of two orphans, and the love they hold for one another. So I did not read the synopsis before reading this book. I'm going to start doing that from now on whenever it's a fiction book that gets 1-star bombed, because I want to go in with no idea what's going to happen. First thing I took an issue with right off the bat, page 1, was the book's prose. Oh my god. It is ridiculously flowery for no reason. Absolutely no reason. There is a kind of writing that is purple and beautiful, and there is a kind of writing that is an author trying to write purple and beautiful, and it does not flow naturally. When authors do this, when they try to write like this and they're not familiar with it, they're not skilled in it, it's kind of like them trying to take on an accent that they cannot imitate. And there are authors who write purple, I'm sure you all know, you've probably read Strange the Dreamer and The Night Circus, where it adds to the story. The story would not be the same without that kind of prose. Whereas in books like this, and another indie book that I won't talk about, it feels like you are slogging through each sentence just going, what the fuck is this author talking about? Just like trying to make your way through like the marshes of unnecessary jargon, and your feet are just stuck. The beginning of the book is especially heavy with this. There is a chapter that is actually chapter 2 where it's literally just this long paragraph, whereas she is dedicating so much verbiage to saying that there's a word for something, but the word does not exist anymore, or it's been forgotten. She says it's the word for the space between things. No, nay. Betwixt things. She actually used the word betwixt, which was hysterical. There was no reason for this chapter to exist. Zero. None. It didn't add any to the story. The editor should have chopped that shit right out of there. I cannot believe that not a single beta reader was like, you don't need that. You don't need that. That's stupid. In the same vein, it's not just the bad attempt at writing purple, it's that in addition to being overwritten, a lot of what she says makes no fucking sense. Despite this book using the word betwixt, Piper also decided to use the term, I shit you not, clout chaser, which, seeing as you are also using words like betwixt and making your fantasy series modeled after what most fantasy series these days are modeled after, and both past and present actually, which is medieval Europe. I mean, that's what the fantasy series she plagiarized was modeled after, wasn't it? Clout chaser is wildly anachronistic. It does not belong, which that's fucking lazy. Other things that didn't make sense, here are my notes. I'm not even gonna go into typos and punctuation. I don't do that here. Were things like, he remained trapped in whatever remained of the shell of his person suit. What the fuck is a person suit? Is that like Buffalo Bill's thing? Person suit, hyphenated. What the fuck? Another thing was like, at one point, Amaris, one of our main characters, is nicknamed Ayla because allegedly Ayla is easier to say, even though Amaris is 3 syllables and Ayla is 2, whatever. And Ayla, the word Ayla, is described as the word for oak. The what word for oak? The old word for oak? The fae word for oak? The what? The what? What kind of word is it? It's just the word. Okay, then why is Ayla not used interchangeably with oak the rest of the book? What? This is just, all of these are like just some of the many reasons why she needed quality beta readers, not just whoever she decided to email this to and whoever decided to be an ARC reader for her based on the TikTok call that she did for ARC readers, and not just an editor that's not really an editor. She needed like help, and she didn't actively look for it, and when people tried to give her critical feedback, she rejected it, and that's why this book is shit. Oh, here's another one. Emily had been worthy of a life filled with emotional diamonds and jewels. What? What are emotional diamonds and jewels? Oh, this was my favorite. Their eyes touched briefly as he assessed the silver girl. Their eyeballs touched. Their eyeballs, they booped eyeballs? They went up to each other and bumped oculars? I don't fucking think so. Alright, let's actually get into the characters. Now that I'm done yelling about the wording. Alright, we have two main characters, Nox and Amaris. They grew up in an orphanage together. Amaris is seen as special because she is all white. White everything. White skin. White skin so white that it makes white clothing look yellow is how she described it. White eyelashes. White eyebrows. White. Because she has Fae lineage, so she is ultra white, I guess. Meanwhile, Nox is described as this and is also literally described as being used as a token. So the thing about this is that if you want to have a discussion about tokenism, okay, you need to get sensitivity readers. This book does not have a discussion about tokenism. This book did not successfully do that at all. Instead, it was just struggle porn, which was extremely uncomfortable. In chapter 1, Nox is in charge of taking care of Amaris, who's 2.5 to 3 years younger than her. And she's in charge of making sure Amaris is hidden away from the bishop of the church, who is coming once a month, every month, to check in on the orphanage and make sure everything is up to snuff. Because Amaris is special, she is called repeatedly Snowflake. You could make the joke, I guess, that she is literally a special snowflake. So the church, if they found out about her, would either take her to go to the church to do, she didn't say what the church would do with her, but they would like use her fayness, I guess, some sort of unexplained nefarious purposes with this snowflake. So 12-year-old Nox is in charge of 10-year-old Amaris, and instead of the like matrons at the orphanage hiding Amaris away before the bishop gets there, instead, for some reason, Nox is in charge of hiding Amaris away when the bishop gets there. That didn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. Whatever. Seems like a weird and convenient way to put her in the position she ended up in. So the bishop shows up. Nox tries to hide her in the kitchen, but then some boys walk in. They get in a fight with the boys, who are, also orphanage kids. The boys run away, and Amaris has to hide because the bishop is coming. So Nox gets in trouble for the mess that's left behind from the fight, and the bishop decides that she is going to be whipped. So we are on chapter 1, and we have seemingly the only character of color who is 12 years old getting whipped. So that was a choice that Piper made. Again, this book I think could have used a sensitivity reader for sure. There really was no reason that this couldn't have been written a different way. And it just set the tone for the rest of the book, which really seemed like this is Amaris' story, even though it's supposed to be dual POV. This is Amaris' story, and we just see how Nox is affected by Amaris existing. This is the story of Amaris and how her life affects this other character named Nox. It's like, oh, okay, that sucks. All of the kids at the orphanage are for sale, but of course Amaris is the special snowflake, so she shall fetch a higher price than any of them. A day comes when a woman named Millicent, who is a brothel owner, shows up and is like, that one, I want that special snowflake over there. But they're like, no, you can't have her because she hasn't become a woman yet, which, oh no. I just feel like associating womanhood with first periods is ridiculous, and I definitely think it's ridiculous for a 30-year-old woman living in 2022 to be doing that in a book. Come on. I did not need another book with weird misogynistic views on sex work and menstruation, but yet here we are. On the day they plan to escape from the orphanage, of course, who should show back up? Millicent, who we are told incessantly smells like vanilla. And Amaris is like, fuck no, I'm not going. So meanwhile, there just happened to have been an assassin who showed up an assassin shows up, he stays the night because the orphanage is part of the church, and the next day Amaris is like, fuck no, I'm not going with this brothel lady, tells Knox to wait outside for her, and then she like gets in a tussle with Millicent and then goes and runs after the assassin, is like, take me with you, buy me, and he says okay. And you've been led to understand that when Amaris says something, people have to do it. Like, she has a power that comes out when she yells and tells people that they have to do something. So, yeah. So the assassin takes pity on her and they ride off on his horse. More on that in a second. So what happens to Knox? She gets bought by Millicent and is literally called a consolation prize. Again, really uncomfortable. So she goes to work at the brothel, and of course a man pays an arm and a leg to take her virginity, but she's also taking his virginity, so it was weird. I just was really not a fan of the way that gender and sex were discussed in this book. Let me talk about the misogyny, because that's... It's both annoying and it doesn't make sense. So it does not get discussed in a way that has nuance or like any critical understanding. There is just no reason why we have to have fantasy books that have misogyny in them at all in 2022. There's just no reason that we have to build a world like that. Like, especially if you're not going to make substantial commentary on it or any at all. This book is like, it just does nothing but binary ideas of gender, which in 2022, seriously? It's like women only being beautiful if they're feminine and men only being handsome if they're masculine and muscular and have husky voices and are brawny, but they make some sexist jokes sometimes, so that's okay because we're pals. They treat their woman friends real swell. Like, come on. There were just a lot of like weird things being said, not just about you get your period, now you're a woman, but also like about virginity, which is a social construct. Are we seriously still making virginity a big deal in fantasy books in 2022? And like, if it's important to you to have like, you know, lose your virginity in a special way, that's fine. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is men paying more for virgins. I don't want it. Especially if you're not going to deconstruct how harmful that is. I don't want it. And also things being said like, the men's frustration compounded with a combination of testosterone and helplessness that they had not been present, nor could they do anything now. The fuck does testosterone have to do with men wanting to do things and feeling like they can mansplain things to you? That's cultural. That's not biology. It has nothing to do with testosterone. What you're describing is men's desire to fix situations because they perceive women as being incapable of fixing them because of culture. That's the role that we have designated for men and for women. Like, those are culturally designed and implemented gender roles. What the fuck is it doing in a fantasy in 2022? I am once again begging people to read Bell Hooks' book on masculinity called The Will to Change. Please, I'm begging. And I don't mind discussing misogyny in books. I really don't. But you have to build a world in which it makes sense and then make proper commentary on it. Dismantle it, if you will. You're gonna want to build a world in which misogyny is built like patriarchy is in our world. It is therefore woven into every culture and fabric in different ways and different systems. Make your commentary on that. But if you're going to make commentary on such a thing, you have to understand it. And this book, oh no. But here, in The Night in Its Moon, it just kind of, the sexism, the misogyny just sort of came and went whenever it was convenient. Which made no sense, seeing as the deity that they worship is a fucking goddess, and she's like the only deity that seems to exist. So there's no like historical context of patriarchy rooted in religion. The goddess is revered. One of the two countries that we have in this world, Fairhold and what's the other, Roscott? Fairhold is run by a queen. So like, if women are in positions of power, then why are we still having men doing misogyny when there's no patriarchy? Explain. And of course, only the nice guys are for basic equality. It's like, this is, oh my god, it's like that one fantasy book that I hated all over again. A clear indication of the misogyny is rooted in where Amaris goes, and this is where the book really fucking pissed me off. Let me give you a synopsis from a fictional thing, and you tell me where it's from. A girl, orphaned, with all white hair and a scar over her eye, who has fey lineage and a special power that she doesn't understand that tends to come out when she yells. gets picked up by a kind-hearted, assassin-y guy whose job is to stab things. He and her ride away on his special horse to the mountains where the rest of the men who stab things live. She asks them to train her. They know about demons and such. They even know about things like gin that can grant you 3 wishes. There are only about a dozen of them now, but there used to be much more. They're reluctant to let her into their ranks and train with them due to, of course, misogyny. So at first she gets plenty of shit. She asks if there's a special council or like a, I don't know, president or something, and is told, no, there's no hierarchy among us, but there is one who's been here the longest, and he sort of gets final say. Of course, there's always that issue of her underlying power that comes out when she screams and gets upset. She grows up there, trains with them, learns about fighting and potions and tonics, and even learns about gin that can grant you 3 wishes. She becomes one of them, and they consider her their family. Does it sound familiar to anybody? No takers? Any guesses at all? Let me say it again. An orphan girl with all white hair and a scar over her eye who has fey lineage and a special power that she doesn't understand gets picked up by a kind-hearted guy whose job is to kill things. He and her ride away on his special horse to the mountain where the rest of his kind live, and she asks them to train her. They know about demons and such. There are only about a dozen of them now, but there used to be much more. They train together and then get dispatched individually. They are reluctant to let her into their ranks and begin training, of course, due to misogyny, so she gets plenty of shit first. She asks if there's some council she'll have to appeal to, but the kind-hearted man who picked her up says, no, there's no hierarchy, but there is one guy who's been there longer than everyone else, so he kind of gets final say on things. Of course, there's the issue of her underlying power, which comes out when she gets upset and screams. She grows up there, trains with them, learns about fighting and potions and tonics. She even learns about the djinn who can grant 3 wishes. She becomes one of them, and they consider her to be family. So if you guessed The Witcher, you are correct. But you probably assumed now that this is also in Piper's book. Yeah, so she plagiarized the fucking Witcher. The Witcher. All of that is stuff that she took, just ripped out of The Witcher and just pasted into her book. Just slammed it in there. I know that some of you are like, oh, isn't that just coincidence? No, it's not. It's plagiarism. And also Piper knows this. She knows that she did this because her TikTok is full of her having videos about how much she loves The Witcher.
Okay, people, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., Santa's coming to town.
Santa! Oh my God! Santa here? I know him.
This is really difficult for me to talk about, but it's time for me to come clean. I'm ready to be held accountable for my actions. It all started in 2007 when my first playthrough of Witcher 1. I first started faking this for male attention. Fake fans can be anywhere. They can be masquerading as your friends, your neighbors. The 6th time I played through Witcher 3, I was like, wow, is there no end to how far I will go for attention? This is why we must remain diligent and find out who the actual fans are. I apologize to everyone I let down by letting them believe I was really a fan. I will educate myself on this, and I promise to do better. Thank you.
First things first, I just finished this. And I have 2 things to say. The first is, I don't mean to oversell it, but it changes you forever. The second is that everyone who tried to Witcher-splain to me that it's not pronounced Bruxa can suck a fuck, because yes it is.
Algorithm to connect me to the one other Witcher fan who cares about this, because this is really niche.
Other things on their mind. Things like me.
She plagiarized The Witcher and for some reason thinks that nobody will say anything. But here I am saying it. You plagiarized The Witcher. What the fuck? It's like if I... it's like if I decided to write a book about a girl named Terry Flay who finds out that she is a dark hunter who is descended from angels, and she meets this guy named Ace, and they start to, try to find the immortal plate, and then, they're finding out all of this about the underworld, which coincides with our world, and there's like vampires and fae and demons, and they have to fight them at the college. It has lots of library books on this, and there is a world called Iris where they go for the Dark Hunters Council, and also she's kind of in love with her brother Ace. Oh yeah, he's her brother. You all know I'm talking about Shadowhunters. You can't just change the names and pretend that it's not the same thing. That's not my story. I could put it on Wattpad. Wattpad and be like, yeah, this is my version of Shadowhunters. It's still not mine. It's fanfic. And like, enough of it was stolen to make it blatantly obvious. There's actually this song that I love. My husband and I are really into like screamo music, and there's these like bands that we really like Emarosa and Dance Gavin Dance and Pierce the Veil, and back in the day there were like these really iconic songs from all these bands, and this dude named Jared decided to take all of like the most iconic parts of those songs and mishmash them together. And the song is funny because it's literally like it even says like, I stole your songs, and the breakdown says this is plagiarism, and it's very tongue-in-cheek, right? This book is not tongue-in-cheek. This is plagiarism. And it's not the funny kind. That was self-aware. Piper tried to pass this off as if it was her own idea, which it's not. What Piper did is more of like when Johnny Craig sells you a fake laptop for $200. I will be shocked if anybody on my channel understands the context for that joke. All right, let's go back to Knox, now that we've talked about the plagiarism. Knox basically is fetishized throughout the entire book. It's really uncomfortable. After having sex with that man that paid for her virginity and for her to take his, she killed him because she's a succubus. Madame Millicent, the brothel lady, sees this and is like, oh, dope, I can use that to my advantage for my political aspirations. Whatever. Her ultimate wish is to be part of the Queen's court. Why? We don't know. And let's talk about the Queen and the politics, because the politics in this is half-baked at best. And I do not mean the delicious ice cream from Ben & Jerry's. I mean half-baked as in the half of the effort that needed to be put into this book was. We have two major countries, Roscott and Fairhold. I almost said Fairchild. I just talked about Clary for several moments, and now it's just nothing but Cassie Clare. Roscott is, I guess, predominantly dark fae, is run by a king, and it's heavily hinted, towards the end it's like the king wants to find his long lost heir, his son, but it's like made very clear in every instance, it's like, it's not a son, and it's probably Knox. It's probably a daughter. Like, okay, we get it. Shut the fuck up. The Queen of Fairhold had a daughter who had a son. The Queen's daughter died, her husband died, and all that's left is the son. Or is it? Amaris heads with some of the Reavers, aka Witchers, to go to the, main city and be like, hey, Queen Moiraine, Moirai, why are so many Roscott men ending up dead? And she's like, dunno. Are you doing this? What? I could never. And Amaris has not just brought along Reavers, she's also brought along some dark fae with her. In particular, Rhysand and Cassian. No, that's not right. Gadriel and Zekai. Yes, there's winged fae, but don't worry, the author explicitly said multiple times they do not have bat's wings. There's feathers. Thank you. Thank you for particularly pointing out that they are not bat's wings, so that you could differentiate yourself from Sarah J. Maas. Thanks for that. Still seems like Walmart ACOTAR, but okay. Based on the author's TikToks, I thought that there was going to be a romance between Gadriel and Amaris. That didn't pan out. This book is nothing but build up for the rest of her series, which is something that I think a lot of people struggle with when they're building a huge plot for a series. It's hard not to make your first book nothing but like unnecessary prologue. But please don't do that. So Gadriel and Zekai, aka Rhys and Cassian, whenever they leave their home of Roscott and go into Fairhold, they are perceived as demons, even though they don't see each other as that. The people of Fairhold see them as demons and like shoot at them and be like, be gone, demons. So they're like, this is a curse. We don't know who cursed us, but we're cursed. So they go from looking like Rhysand and Cassian to looking like me when I wake up in the morning. So Amaris, as I said, goes to the capital of Fairhold where the queen is, and she's like, hey, Queen Moirai, what's up with like all these Roscott men ending up dead? And also there's like this curse, do you know anything about that? And Queen Moirai is like, nah, I don't know anything about that, and neither does my grandson. And Amaris is like, what fucking grandson? And the queen's like, right there in that chair, my grandson. And Amaris is like, there's nobody in that chair. So it turns out that not only can Amaris, because of her fae lineage, speak things and people have to like follow her instruction unless they're fae, but also she can see through like curses, enchantments, right? Which is why she can see Gadriel and Zekai, and everybody else perceives them as demons. And she's like, it's you're the villain. There is no prince. You made him up and you cursed Rhysand and Cassian. Those other dudes with not bat wings. She's like, you're a master illusionist. You're responsible for the curse on Walmart Rhysand, and I'm gonna take you down. And so she gets put in a jail cell along with her Reaver friends. Reavers. Witchers. Meanwhile, Nox shows up in the jail. How did she get there? Fun story. So first of all, Millicent was the best character in this book because Millicent, the brothel owner, has a creepy hand that like does death. So apparently she touched Nox and like sent her into a coma, and Nox spent the whole like coma being like, oh, I'm gonna fucking leave, I'm gonna leave, oh, you just wait until I'm out of this coma and I'm gonna leave. And she did. So she runs away and she goes to a bar and she finds the captain of the guard. I forget why she wanted to meet the captain of the guard, but it's all stupid and pointless anyway. So she, you know, convinces him to take her home so that she can succubus him and make him into her like slave. And instead she finds out he's a sadistic serial killer. But don't worry, she convinces him to fuck her before he kills her. And he's like, I'll show you with my dick. And she's like, not if I show you with my succubus stuff first. And so she like puts him into a succubus coma, which is where the whole person suit thing came from. So she Buffalo Billed him, did some weird shit to his dick that I refuse to talk about, other than to say that now it looks like the man has a perpetual boner. He's under her control, so she heads to the dungeon and she sees Amaris. And they kiss, even though they never professed their feelings for each other before this, so that was odd and out of nowhere. And then she tries to break Amaris out, but I guess her hairpin got stuck in the lock? Amaris, I think what happened is that her and Not Recent had to fight a dragon, and then they flew away on the dragon to a college, a university, where people study magic. So that's how that ends. So listen, there's bits and pieces of this that were not bad, but they are completely overshadowed by the plagiarism and the weird tokenization and fetishization of Nox. I can't speak anymore. This video's gone on too long. Like I cannot believe she did such blatant plagiarism of The Witcher. What the fuck? Even if she had taken time to refine the good and work with, you know, her beta readers and get critical feedback and work with an actual editor and not just get a bunch of beta readers that fed her ego, this is still Witcher plagiarism. So yeah, it's enough for me to say that this deserved 1 star. I would give it 0 if I could on Goodreads. It deserves it. This is the most blatant plagiarism I've seen since the last time I read a J. Kristoff book. So yeah. Who also plagiarized The Witcher, actually, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, calm down. Anyway, that's it. That's all my thoughts on The Night in Its Moon. Let me know what you thought of this ridiculous ass book. I don't know if I will be continuing this. I guess if you really want me to, I can, but the writing was pretty bad. So, I mean, this is the channel that gets this is the series that gets the most ad revenue on my channel. This book gave me heartburn. But, oh my god, like, I don't see how this could possibly go anywhere that The Witcher hasn't already gone. Like, what the fuck? Anyway, that's it for The Night in Its Moon by Piper CJ. Leave your thoughts and comments down below. If you want to support the work I do here, I have a Ko-fi account linked below. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, see you next time. Bye!